Alrighty, well, how we doing? You guys get some good stuff so far today? Yeah? Cool. Alright, so I get to give the Olean message. So, like Kayla said, when she brought me up, Olean is my favorite conference. So, I love Olean. I've been, this will be my 8th one, I guess, or my 9th one, something like that. So this is my favorite trip of the entire year. So I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about why Olean is awesome. Not going to lie, Kate stole like every picture or some variation of it that I have in my PowerPoint, and she put it in hers. So you're going to see some repeats, but that's cool. And then I'm going to talk about how to maximize the Olean push, so that way everyone can show up to Olean impressive and with a good push report, a little extra money in the bank and stuff like that. So the Olean conference, it's November 14th through the 17th. The 14th and 17th are our travel days, so the actual event itself is on the 15th and 16th. That's a Friday and a Saturday. And this is such a unique opportunity. Kate touched on it a little bit earlier, but how cool is it that we get invited to like the homeland of our company, right? Like the Mecca. So they open up the factory doors. They, by the way, don't just do this for the Northeast region. They literally do this 6 times. They invite the entire company to come 6 different times throughout the fall, and they let us tour everything. And so few people ever get a chance to do this with their company ever, and you guys get to do it as like 18, 19, 20 some year olds, you know, in college, which is so unique and so awesome. So I'm really excited. The basic rundown is the first day is the factory tour. So I love the factory tour. If you don't know, I studied civil engineering, so I like ate it up when they were like, this is how you make this, and this is all this stuff, and I loved it. But regardless of what you study, even if you're not into building things or engineering, whatever, whatsoever, it's always a highlight for people. You get to see really cool things. So like basically everything you talk about on the demo, you get to see in person. So well, they have the Cutco car. You get to see the misuse and abuse section. I won't like spoil that because that's like definitely a highlight. They tell you the funniest stories. That's just a big bucket of rivets. You get to see how they put the double D edge on, which is the diamond wheel in the top center. You get to see like a bunch of K-bar knives that you probably didn't even know we make. And then like we've got the super shears table. You get to see how they bag the knives and like tons. You get to dip your hand in like thermo resin beads and stuff like that. They tell you not to, but everyone does anyway. And so everything you talk about on the demo, you get to do, or you get to see firsthand, which I think is really cool. And you also just get to see like the appreciation the factory has for what we do out here in the field, which I think is really awesome. So every year, leaving Olean, I always find that my representatives, they do better on their demos because there's so much more conviction when you've seen it firsthand, and when you feel the like love and appreciation that the factory has for what we do. So we do the factory tour, and then we do dinner with the entire region. Albert DiLeonardo, factory's president, is there. John Welpley, who's the guy that signed those paychecks we just handed out earlier, you get to meet him. So you literally get to meet the guy responsible for paying you, which is pretty neat. Jim Stitt, he's the CEO of Cutco Corporation as a whole. They are there for dinner, as well as a bunch of other executives and just like leaders in the field. So we do dinner, we do a push countdown, and that's always an absolute blast, and getting to meet those people and seeing them. We take pictures, so like they do like a trophy race. There's a picture of the at the factory tour, and then over here on the right, the top one is my Rockville team picture from last year. They took the picture without me. Sorry. So I'm still a little salty about it, not going to lie. So don't do that again this year, Rockville, because I'll be really mad. And then we have our divisional picture. We actually had the biggest division there last year. We brought so many people as a DC Metro division. There wasn't room for us to seat upstairs, so they like literally gave us our private DC Metro room downstairs, which was pretty lit. And so always a ton of fun the first day. The second day is our leadership development day. So that's kind of like what we just did today, but it's with the entire region. So you're going to hear people or messages from the top people in the region. And there's definitely messages about personal growth and development and like moving your skill set forward. But they also start talking about winter break, and I don't think Kate plugged it enough. So let me just tell you that there's going to be a winter break trip announcement, and they're going to take us somewhere warm and tropical. And yeah, so last year we went to Jamaica. This is Jamaica. That was like the pool bar from a distance. That was the room from the view from my room. I had like the water view, which was kind of cool, and I just really liked that palm tree, so I put that in there. And the cool thing about the winter break trip is like think about February for a second and like how cold it is. And if you're like me, I don't like winter or cold, so you're like miserable. And then you hop on a plane and it's like sunny paradise. It's like that for 4 days. It's pretty great. We also just got back from Bahamas, as you guys may have heard.
Yeah.
So have some of the same pictures that Kate put in there. But that was an absolute blast. Typically the resort we go to is all inclusive, so you know what that means. All the water you can drink. So they tell you what the trip is, and then they tell you literally step by step how to win the trip. So that's what the second day looks like. After the learning portion is over, they turn the room we're in into like a dance floor. They have like games and there's ping pong, there's cornhole, there's just a bunch of fun stuff, and we basically hang out for a few hours as a region, just having a really good time, getting to know each other a little bit better. So in my opinion, like I said, Olean's my favorite conference, and I think it's just because it's different. It's very unique compared to what we usually do, but in my opinion, this is the best opportunity to network as well. So it's the whole region together, but it's on a smaller scale. And they have things built in that kind of give us a little bit more time to network, like the good times when they turn it into a dance floor. That's like a great opportunity to network. And people typically hang out a lot after the conference is over, too, at night and things like that. There's like an Applebee's next to the hotel people always go to eat at. And it's just a ton of fun. And so this event last year is really where a lot of my people met like other friends in the region. And this is where they started establishing connections to people that would be like their future mentors, friends in the business, people that they would compete with throughout the summer, people that they just overall increased their circle of influence with. And I know that ended up being really influential for a lot of the people in my organization who were assistant managers or branches or district managers, and that happened at Olean. And I kind of mentioned a few of the reasons why it's a lot of fun, but it's just a ton of fun. Even something like the car ride up, it's a little bit longer than the SC2 car ride, so that's always a blast. And getting to hang out with each other at good times. The factory tour, they do fun things like, I think it's on the second night, everybody or anyone who wants to goes and plays football in the Walmart parking lot, and that's always a good time. Can sometimes be a little slippery because it's like snowing sometimes. And then people hanging out. So Olean, like I said, it's my favorite event. And it is definitely different than any event you all have been to so far. And so I know a lot of people in here are signed up. Raise your hand if you're signed up for Olean. Cool. Well over half of the room, which I like to see. And if you're not, definitely talk to your manager. Make sure we get you signed up for that ASAP. So Olean, awesome one to be at. Now, the majority of this message is about how to make sure we optimize leading up to Olean. So just like with every other conference you've ever been to, there's a push that leads up to it. And so that's what we're going to spend the majority of my message talking about today. And so for the Olean push, it's obviously the push that leads up to the conference. This is the last fall push, and I also think the most important fall push. And that's really because this is us like doing a really great job before we go visit the people who we do this job for, and the people who help us make our jobs possible and give us all of these opportunities, which is really cool. So the push itself, it starts on October 25th. So it's not this Friday coming up, but the next Friday. So it's about 2 weeks away. And it's going to go through the first day of the Olean event, which is November 15th. So it's a long push. They made it that way so that way as students, you all have 3 weekends that you can sell during the push. Because typically, as a student, that's when you're a little bit more open, have a little bit more flexibility in your schedule. So they wanted to give you 3 weekends. So the reason that we have this push is to really give you an avenue and an opportunity to apply everything that you're learning in Leadership Academy right now, right? And so it's one thing to be on the weekly calls or be in your office locally each week and come to these divisional preps on Saturdays and like learn all of the information, but really the best way to become a master at the information and to really make it a habit and like part of yourself is to get to apply the information. So it's one thing to learn about time management, but then to actually apply it, especially, in something like a push is going to make that, even better for you. And what better of a way to embody all the things we talk about in Leadership Academy than to step out of your comfort zone a little bit, push yourself for a short period of time and sort of expand your capacity, right? So That's why we have the push. Now, this isn't like an SC2 style push, okay? So we're not going to expect, everyone to be in their office like 8 a.m. every single day, phone jamming and things like that. There are some of you who your schedule is going to allow you to be in the office like some days per week at 8 a.m., but that's not what everybody's going to do. However, we do expect everybody to sell for this push, all right? And for some of you guys, it's going to be just a little bit. It might be like, hey, the minimum level of the push, which I'll go over here in a second. For some of you guys, maybe you want to go after a trophy, or you want to work a little bit harder. Your schedule's more open. You can do more. And some of you guys are going to be in between. But we do expect everybody in Leadership Academy to have some orders on the board and contribute for the Olean push. So the cool thing about this one is you get to give your push report in front of the company executives. So Jim Stitt, John Welpley, all of those guys are going to see the push report. They'll know who the top performers were. And in many cases, a certain number of people during the push actually get to have dinner with the president in Olean, which is a really cool opportunity as well. So that's always a lot of fun. So what we say for this push is no goose eggs. So no one shows up with a 0. And I'm going to show you guys exactly why to do that. Now, this is a really great time to, especially if you haven't sold since the summer or very little since the summer, this is a great time to get back into it. Why do you guys think this time of year is a really great time to be selling Cutco? Caitlin?
People like to buy Christmas gifts.
Yeah, so the holidays are coming up, so they're going to be buying for those. Absolutely. What else?
Fresh racks.
Cool. Yes, yeah, so you can get some fresh racks from people, things like that. Awesome. Cool. Any other ideas? Yeah, the holidays, like not only holidays for giving are coming up, but holidays for eating are coming up, right? So people do a ton of cooking around this time of year, not only for the holidays, but also I know for me, like, again, I don't like the cold. So when it's cold outside, I'm way more motivated to stay in and like cook than I am to go out and eat, just because I don't want to be in the cold. So it's like soup season right now too, or it's becoming soup season. People are doing their soups and their stews and their chilies and all of that stuff. So those are fantastic reasons. Another reason is that for most of you guys, you haven't done like consistent appointments in a little while. And so it's been a couple of months, like since most or all of your customers have gotten Cutco from you. And so if you sold to someone in May or June or, even July or August, it's been a few months, and chances are they all love their stuff, right? But chances are there's a few extra things they're thinking about getting, or maybe they like got some stuff and they've paid it off at this point. Their payments have run out, so now they might be ready for like that next step, especially as we're getting into the holiday season. So this time of year kind of tees you up to follow up with people and see what they need for the holidays, for others, for themselves, and what they need to add to their Cutco collection. So of all the times of year to like kind of get back into it, this one is a great one. Also, it's just a great buying atmosphere because like literally everybody is in the mindset to spend when we're approaching the holidays, right? So everyone hits the malls, everyone shops on Amazon, everyone's buying, and so why not step in and just, hey, get Cutco, and makes it easy. So definitely a great opportunity for that. There's also a lot up for grabs for you guys. So someone in the back's going to pass around pink papers, which has the Olean push and like the prizes that you can win. So we've got some push prizes. There's also a trophy race. So the top 12 Olean attendees are going to get a trophy as representatives. So top 12 in the entire region. And the top 8 are going to get dinner with an executive. And you win a vector trained tumbler, which is kind of cool.
2 pages.
Yeah, it's 2 pages.
Yeah, it's 2 pages. They didn't do front and back. Sorry. They didn't do it or I didn't order it that way. It's unclear at this very moment. Cool. Nah, I disagree. All right, so as this is coming around, we'll go through this a bit. The first level is $1,000. That's where you can give your sales report on stage in front of the company executives. When you get your piece of paper, I want you to aggressively circle $1,500. Well, aggressively, like multiple circles, underlines, whatever you want to do. I literally want to see it. I want to see the aggressive circling.
More aggressive.
There we go, Elijah. There it is. All right. One of the things that's up for grabs is trip credit. Just in case you need a reminder, that's what the trips look like. Cool? Just in case anyone needed a reminder. So this is a huge key, all right? A good majority of the people that win the winter break trip have some form of credit, okay? It cannot hurt to make it easier for you to win a trip. Now, I'm not saying, like, if you have a bunch of trip credit, you shouldn't, like, try hard over winter break, but it's just nice to have some peace of mind that you've already got some credit as we're about to start the winter break push. So $1,500 is the first level for that. When you sell that, that's $500 a week during the push, by the way. Most of you, that's like your average order. You get $1,000 in CPO credit toward the push. So I don't know what the level is, but when they announce what the level to win the trip is, you'll sell $1,000 less. Cool? $2,500, you get $1,500 in credit, plus some other stuff, which you guys can read there. And $3,500 is where you get $2,000 in trip credit, which is also awesome. So that's a pretty good amount. I'm not sure there's usually a way to get $2,000 in push credit, and you guys can. And then there's some higher levels, too, for those of you guys who really want to go big with it, go after like the #1 trophy at the event, and win some other stuff, too. There's some automatic prizes. So this is pretty sweet. $1,500. I want to see everyone there. Couple of other reasons that this is a great time of year, or a great push for you guys to take advantage of. #1 is income. So I did the college thing once upon a time, and I know it's like about halfway through the semester, especially kind of like once we start to get to the Olean push. And I know a lot of us, we work for Vector, and we've got, money because we save it, and these paychecks or savings checks that we just gave out speak for themselves. But, you spent a little bit over the last few months, and it's always good to replenish a little bit and add some extra money into your bank account and just see that number rise in the bank account instead of decrease for every once in a while. It's also an opportunity for you to increase your savings. So at $1,000 in savings, so several of you are there at this point, but if you have over $1,000 in savings, when you get to the Olean trip, you get a picture with Kate as our division manager, Earl Kelly, the region manager, and then Al and Jim Stitt and John Welpley, so all of like the top executives. You get a picture with them that you can show customers. You can put it in your office if you run one in the future. It's a pretty cool opportunity to get a picture with the CEO and president of the company. We already went over trip credit. Also increase your matrix score. So Kate went over this a little bit at the beginning in her opening comments. But selling right now actually improves 3 categories of your matrix score. It improves your fall sales number, it improves your career sales number, and it'll help improve your savings number. So just by executing the Olean push well, you can actually add a couple or a few points to your matrix score, which really goes a long way. And the last reason that I think this push is important is it puts you on Kate's radar. And so I know at this point, most of us probably don't know exactly what we're doing next summer. You might have some idea, but you're not necessarily committed to one thing or another. You're still kind of figuring it out. And so no one's ready to make commitments in most cases right now. But as Kate mentioned, in like before we know it, it'll be winter break. And we start making decisions about the 4 paths someone's going to go into, with Vector. And so right now is a perfect time to start kind of emerging yourself as a leader and putting yourself higher up on her radar. Even though she's not making those decisions for another couple of months, it's never too early to start showing her that you're a little bit more serious and having your name on her list, because it can't hurt to be on her radar, right? So that's a big one there as well. So when it comes to the push, there's lots of ways to get it done. So I think there were 3, my sophomore, junior, and senior year, I went to Olean when I was in college. And each of those Olean pushes, I was kind of in a different scenario. There were some Olean pushes where I had a little bit more time. And then there was one Olean push where I think Kayla mentioned I was taking like 20 credits and working in the pilot and like had classes, stuff to do, and still found a way to get it done. And I had to do it different ways each time. So regardless of what your scenario is, I'm a firm believer that there is a way to execute it. There is a way to get it done. There's lots and lots of ideas that we can use to generate CPO during the push. So we're going to make a list up here on the board. I'm going to have you guys help me out with this. So what are some ways or ideas that we can execute or do to generate CPO for the Olean push?
Push plan.
Cool, like specific things that like create CPO. Yeah, Kayla.
Calling back old customers
Old-
and emails. More
Old
customers.
customers.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this could be like calls or emails.
Yep.
Cool. What else?
Also, just like getting more numbers from old customers so that you can do more demo.
Okay, so like getting more recs, which lead to demos, and I think like one idea is demos, right? So that's like the very traditional way that we get CPO. Connor?
Making Facebook posts or like your friends or relatives to post.
Mm-hmm. Social media post, yep. What else?
Events.
Could do events if you're on an events team or can get events trained. Yeah, absolutely. Someone over here, Elijah.
Demos would be to put messages.
Cool. Using people at school. Awesome.
Rep portals.
Okay, cool. Yeah, if you have that. I'm sure to say most of you guys don't know what a rep portal is, but I like it. Kayla?
Virtual demos.
Virtual demos, yep. What else we got? Connor?
Professors and people in town.
Cool. Got it. All good. Kevin?
Calls.
Huh?
Service calls.
Okay, yeah, if you're service call trained. Ian's going to do a service call training sometime soon. Details are in the group me. Service calls. Should write that out. Cool. Promise orders can be an idea. I'm sure most of you have at least a handful of customers that said, not right now, but call me back closer to the holidays, right? So that's always a good one. Cool. Any other ideas that you guys have to generate CPO? Elijah?
Sticky notes in the off campus and the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm. And if you're like at home, go to community college, sticky notes just where you live now currently. Cool. Anthony?
Giving out free caca.
Okay, so like a raffle.
Oh yeah. Or just more recs.
Yeah, so raffle for orders or recs. That kind of ties in a little bit to what we set up here. Cool. Anything else you guys can think of? Cool. So I think that's a pretty solid list. And, like maybe you won't do every single one of these things, but each and every one of these ideas is a different way to win. And so when it comes to your specific situation, you've just got to figure out what works best for you. So if you're away at school or you're just really busy, virtual demos are great because they're very short, right? You don't have to go anywhere to get those done. And they're easy to fit into the schedule. And then a lot of the things that don't require a ton of time or like you going anywhere for those of you who are really busy or you're a little bit further away from home. So things like reaching out to past customers, right? Things like following up with promise orders or having someone or multiple people in your family do a social media post just to generate like easy CPO or an easy demo that you don't really have to phone for. So if you're really busy, that's what I recommend. If you're kind of like in the middle, maybe it's your like within driving distance from home, but you're not necessarily like in your home territory, or maybe you kind of are like semi-busy. I recommend doing all of the things that you can do from right where you are, emails, phone calls, to customers, social media statuses. And I recommend picking at least one weekend to just go home to your territory and do some demos, right? So one weekend, that's why there are 3 of them, is so that way you have lots of choices. So if you have something going on one weekend, you can be flexible with it. And then for those of you guys who maybe you go to school locally to your own territory, like in community college or something like that, you're home and you can do traditional demos and things of that nature, I recommend trying to get on a specific schedule for doing that, right? And so the push, it doesn't necessarily need to look the same for everybody, and it's not going to look the same for everybody. But what's important is that you have a plan that's specific to you, and you just think about how you're going to win the push. And so that is what we're going to do right now. Even though it's 2 weeks away, we're going to start planning it right now. The biggest mistake people make during the Olean push is they say, oh, it's a 3-week-long push. That's plenty of time to sell $1,500. And I get that, right? There are a lot of you, if not all of you in here, who have had $1,500 days in your Cutco career, right? I get that. But understanding that over the summer you weren't taking full-time classes and you had momentum and stuff like that. So let's not fall into the trap of like, oh, I got plenty of time. It's 3 weeks. Let's plan ahead now, and then all you have to do is execute that plan. So with that being said, got a document. Can I have one of them, actually? Thanks, Ed.
Yep.
And we're going to do that. So, on the schedule, as you guys see it here, it starts next. It doesn't have this coming week, but it has the week leading into the push. I couldn't fit this coming week. But we're going to plan out both before the push and during the push, all right? Cool. So, here's what we're going to do here. So, like I said, it starts on the 20th. It's like that's the beginning of Momentum Week. It doesn't have this week that we're approaching that starts like tomorrow/Monday on here. But what I recommend is you try to get ahead on things over the next 2 weeks. So that way you're not like freaking out during the push about all of the things that you have to do. And so you can take out resources for this section. So I'm going to kind of like walk us through it together, but ultimately do however makes the most sense to you. Managers are going to come around, make sure everyone like knows what we're doing, answer questions, things of that nature. But the first step is going to be to put your school stuff in the schedule. So if you have like a planner that you use and you want to take that out so you can put in when you have exams, papers due, all that stuff, you can do that. If it's on like your computer, you have an iCal, Google Calendar, whatever, you can pull it up on your computer or your phone and go ahead and hand write in here everything that's like a school thing over the next few days or next few weeks. So it's important to see it far away so you can look at how like the sequence of events is going to fall together during the Olean push. Some of you guys will be front loaded, so you have a lot of stuff at the very beginning, which means the second part of the push is probably going to be your time to shine, right? Some of you guys, maybe you have a lot of stuff right before we go on the trip, and that's important to know right now because then that way you know you need to take advantage of the beginning of the push, right? So I know I've talked to some of my guys, like Caitlin, you were like, October's crazy, but like November's a little easier, right? And so being able to know that and figuring that out for yourself ahead of time. Let's do it. Cool. So school stuff to include exams, papers that are due, projects that are due. You can put in here if you'd like to when you have like your club meetings and stuff like that. So you can see what your busier days are. If you have a calendar with like your own planner with you and you'd like to use that instead of this, totally fine with that. I just want to make sure we see it on a grand scale. If you have questions, raise your hand. Come around. Yeah.
So since I'm like busy throughout the week all day, what if people aren't available on the weekend? what would you recommend me doing?
So
Just
my
not
guess,
doing that at the time?
my guess is that like they'll be available. Like your schedule is pretty unique, Caitlin, in that you literally are busy from like 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. So I would say like they'll probably be available one of the 3 weekends.
Okay.
You'll just have to do a really good job of firming up because you're going to book your demos a little further in advance,
Yeah,
right?
thinking Sundays I could do with my phone jam
Mm-hmm.
because there's no other day.
Yeah.
I could.
You can maybe squeeze a morning phone jam in a few times a week, depending on exactly when your classes start.
Start at 7:30 or 8 a.m.
In between classes, we'll figure it out, you know. But put in when all your school stuff is due still, because I think that's
I
important
have
for
that
you to
on my
like know.
calendar on my agenda, but I forgot my agenda.
That's okay. There you go. Do the best you can with what you have right now.
I
So
coded to each class too.
that
Does
is
that help?
the most beautiful thing I've ever heard.
Every-
Color
whenever-
coding?
Yeah, 5 different colors.
Nice.
And when
I was
I
never that organized.
Yeah, when
Just
someone
pencil.
sees mine.
Good old graphite for me. Good old pencil. You like that? Did I just date myself? You did, apparently. All right. Now, as you guys are putting in your school stuff, okay, the next thing I want you to think about is what you need to do to, like, prepare for the push, okay? So I have some ideas up on the screen, and you can put these things in, like, the week before it starts. You might also need to put some of these things in your schedule for this coming week, too, just so you don't, like, wait till the last minute. But you can use the back of the sheet, too, if you want to make a list of what you need to do to prepare for the push, right? So if you're going to be doing demos, right? Especially if you haven't done like a solid phone jam in a while or you haven't done consistent demos in a while, it might be a little bit of like a names list brainstorm. Or if you just haven't looked at your names list in forever, it might mean organizing the names list a little bit. So kind of looking at, hey, do I know who I've called, who I haven't? Like, do I need to kind of clean this up and take some people that said no or that I've done demos with out of there so they're not a distraction to my names list, right? So things like that. If you are going to send an email out, a thing that you need to do to prepare for that is get your customer email list off of Vector Connect. You also need to draft the email. And I'm pretty sure I actually have like a bunch probably saved on my computer, so I'll just send those in the group me, but you still have to like change and, you know, switch things around to be more pertinent to you and what's going on, you know, with you right in this very moment. Do you need to review the demo a little bit? For some of you guys who are away at school, this might be the first time you are actually doing a virtual demo or the first time you're planning on doing a lot of them. So if you've only ever done 1 or 2 virtual demos, but that's what you're going to do for the whole push, I recommend reviewing the virtual demo like before the push begins. Maybe doing like a practice one with someone else on your team or with your manager, something like that. So once you're done putting in all the school stuff, start thinking about what you need to do to prepare the push. Prepare for the push. Kayla's got her planner out, what I love to see. I think I have the same planner. Twinsies. Yeah, no, I'm aware. Yeah. I need to like write it out. Oh, okay, yeah, that's the key.
I love it.
What'd you say?
You want us going around now?
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
you can check on your people and stuff like that.
Every-
Yeah, why are you playing your push? Okay. You were sharing fun facts about your Nalgene. I was like,
I mean, I don't know what
Yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to build my Rex.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to do my
How you doing, Soph? Good? Making sense? Lydia got 2 last year, and I think she sold like 4.7 for the push.
Wait, what?
Yeah, but it kind of gets a little higher every year, you know? So,
Yeah. I want to get to, I want to get to 10 because I was able to do 10 for the Bahamas in less than this amount of time.
yeah.
So,
There you go.
like,
If you did 10K, you'd have a run at probably like one of the top 3 trophies, I'd say.
really?
Yeah, it's not quite like SC2, which I know you weren't there, where it's like we have CSPs pushing that do 50K. It's like everyone who's going that's pushing is pretty much a student. So like, but the competition is still real because you're doing it around school and other things.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd say 10K would be solid. You'd get $2,500 in push credit for the January trip, and you'd get a shot at a top trophy for sure.
How dance every
I'm trying to do a ton of demos.
Okay, what's your number?
I want to do 7. I don't know if that's possible, but I want to aim high.
Okay. Yeah, I mean just like
I
Colin,
don't-
just
yeah.
like Colin teaches you first
Alright,
the number of demos,
so-
and then the numbers are following.
Real quick, guys, as you guys are working on this,
So
the next thing, some of you may have moved on to it, but after you've got like the prep done, so you've figured out your class stuff and like what you need to do to prepare, we can start putting in the things that you're going to do to execute your push plan, right? And so the more you have it planned out ahead of time, the easier it's going to be to do. So I would rather, like if you're not sure of some things right now, I would rather you put a plan into place and have to alter it later than to just be like, well, I'm not going to make any plan right now and I'll figure it out later. Does that make sense? Because if you go that route, chances are you'll just never put a plan in place later. Versus if you have a plan, you're more likely to follow it and make adjustments as needed. So in order to do this part, you need to brainstorm what of these ideas you're going to do, right? So if you want to use the back and like put down on here what is the thing that you're going to do, make that list. And then you can start putting things in and try to be as strategic about it as possible. So the reason I had you put your school schedule in ahead of time is because if you're going to be doing virtuals or in-home demos, you're going to want to schedule those when your school load is a little lighter. So like a week, if you have a week with 3 or 4 exams, chances are that week or even like leading up to it probably aren't going to be your huge demo weeks. But like right after 3 or 4 exams are done, classes will kind of ease up a little bit just for a little while. So that can be when you squeeze in your demos, right? When it comes to things like an email blast, I recommend having that within the first week of the push. As if you send it like 3 days before we go, that doesn't give customers a whole lot of time to like check out the website or get back to you or consider it, right? But if you send it in the first week of the push, it gives them plenty of time to see it, plenty of time to look at what they have and what they need, plenty of time to give you a call back, and then it also gives you time to follow up with them toward the end. If you're really close to your goal or you haven't heard back from them, you just need to get some like extra CPO down there too, right? If one of your plans is to call past customers or call specific people who said, check back in around the holidays for a promise order or like more orders, put that in your schedule, right? Because it's very easy to say, oh, well, calling past customers, that's easy. I can do that anytime. But like plan a day where you intend to do that. Because if it's in the plan, even if you have to alter it or adjust it, you're more likely to do it.
Hey, Court, one thing I always had to be reminded of, so I didn't, I typically wasn't selling like heavy week to week during the fall and spring when I was away at school. And so one reminder for me for the Olean push was to really challenge myself during that couple weeks to not just pick the 1 or 2 things that were comfortable, but picking a few things that was actually going to stretch me out of my comfort zone. Not for the whole semester with selling, right? Now, for some of you, you're selling each week of the semester, which is great. But for someone like me, where it wasn't a weekly thing when I was away at school, really picking a couple things that were going to challenge me, that were going to grow me, that were going to get me out of my comfort zone during a couple weeks of the push, right? And so one thing I caution you to do is, like, don't pick the one or two things from the list where it's like, okay, well, that's easy. It feels really comfortable for me. Pick a few things on the list that aren't as comfortable, because that's where you're going to get the growth, right? You've got to get out of your comfort zone to really experience that portion of getting and becoming a better version of you, right? Being in a different place than where you are right now. So that means you've got to pick a couple of things that aren't completely comfy. And that's a good spot to be, right? So try to toe that line of, hey, definitely keep academics number one and crush your classes, but we all know, like, you're not set to 24/7, let's get real. So, find a couple things that'll challenge you during that time period, because Leadership Academy is about growing. It's about getting out of your comfort zone, and we can't just talk about it. We sometimes have to do it, right? Not every day, not even every week, but this is the 25th through the 15th. This should be a time that you do that, right? So just keep that in mind. It's the reason we have push weeks to begin with. It's not about the trip. It's not about the sales. It's not about the giving your report in front of the group. While all those things are great, right? It's really about, hey, every once in a while we've got to mix it up so you don't get stuck, and so that you take the next step forward. And that's really what a push is about. Managers included, by the way. And if you're here as a DM and you haven't mapped out your exact Olean plan, who are you targeting? When are you running your PCs? How are you doing it? This is a good time to do that, right? While they're planning their daily schedule, you should be planning, hey, when am I talking to key people? Who are my breakout people for the push? Who do I, when am I going to sit down and help people with their schedule? When am I going to help them with their game plan for this? When am I going to talk to the rest of the team about it?
Cool. Thanks, Kate. Awesome. So, and I don't think I mentioned it yet, but based on when you were going to do your demos, you also got to fit in your phone time. I also would like to remind everybody is that it's probably not going to take one phone time to book everything that you need, right? So even if it's just like, it doesn't necessarily mean you need like 3 2-hour phone jams in the week. Maybe it's like one solid one and 2 phone jams where you make 10 to 15 calls real quick in like 30 minutes, right? Try to be creative about when you can fit that in. So it might not look as easy as it does in the summer where it's like, oh, I'm pretty free most evenings and then I could do mornings. It might be like in between classes here and there. And it's probably a good thing if you have them at some different times because you never know when you're going to get a hold of people and when people will pick up. So lunchtime can be a great time that maybe you haven't phoned at before or phoned during before, and you can do that too. So having all of that stuff in there. Yeah.
Is it too early to start making like appointments for like the push, or is that like because we're like 2 weeks out? Or?
So that's a great question. I would say it probably is a little too early to book like 2 weeks out unless it's like a case where you really have to. But what would be a good idea is to have a few before the push if you can, so you can build a little momentum. Yeah. So that would be something you could put in like this week or the first week that's on the calendar here too. Raise your hand if you're still working on this a little bit. Some of you guys. Cool. Awesome. All the skills. All the skills.
Yeah, I know. I haven't.
You'll travel after the exam.
Yeah.
You won't need to miss classes on Thursday, so you'll be fine.
Okay, word.
Unless someone has like the class that ends at like 9 p.m.
Yeah, and then.
But if it ends by like 4 or 5.
Yeah.
Even 6 would be
Is
fine.
it a 4-hour drive? No.
5.5 to 6. A little longer with stopping.
So if I leave at 2, I get there at like 9.
Yeah, 8 or 9.
But everyone gets there around like.
I'm gonna be like,
Yeah, everyone gets there at a different time. We'll usually meet up at the Applebee's and then early morning on Friday.
No, we're not.
Okay,
Good one. Try.
cool. The other thing too is I think it's always good to focus on actions, but I would also have like a specific goal that you're excited about, right? So kind of like Kate said, it's about like one of the things about a push is stretching yourself out of your comfort zone, and part of that means having a goal and like sticking to it and doing like creating and find a way to hit that goal, right? So I broke down a few. This is on like the traditional demo sense, right? So this doesn't include necessarily CPO you'd get from emails, calling past customers and things like that, but this is based on like a $250 average order and a 60% closing ratio. So I know these are low results for you guys in here, but it just gives you an idea of like how many demos you might need to complete to hit a certain number for the push itself. How many calls you would need to make, so on and so forth. So that gives you an idea there. Some of you guys might want to steal those numbers just to give yourselves an idea. Right. Does anyone have any questions about how to put a plan together, anything like that, before I just wrap up here with a few final steps? No? Okay, cool. So, last couple of things. So next steps, leaving here. One thing that I recommend doing, and I'm sure your managers will follow up with you on this anyway, is to get a PC or a call with your manager to review your plan. Number one is if you review the plan with the manager, now you've told someone else what you're planning, and they can hold you accountable to it. And the other thing is if you have questions or if maybe adjustments need to be made or they can make a suggestion, they can help you strengthen that plan. So if you can meet in person with them, great. If not, hop on FaceTime or a video chat or something like that. And just spend 30 minutes with them reviewing your push plan and talking about how you're going to execute, make sure that they can hold you accountable to that. The second thing is I mentioned organizing your names list. It could even be brainstorming the names list. For those of you guys who maybe haven't picked up your sample kit or done a virtual in a while, I recommend trying to find a few softball demos that you can book with first. So a lot of you, especially those of you that started this summer, you probably have people that you called all summer that either never answered or they were always on vacation or they said, I'm busy this week, call me back next week, that you can book during this time. So over the summer, a lot of people are on vacation, random, sporadic times, but now kids are in school and people are kind of more in their groove with their schedule. So people you might not have gotten over the summer or maybe never picked up, they'll answer now, and those can be really easy demos to book up, right? And if you don't have any of those, there are always some easy softball demos you can brainstorm of people that you're like, I know if they answer, they'll book a demo with me. And having a few of those really easy ones to just book immediately, it does wonders for your confidence, right? So that can also be something that you brainstorm with your manager. The next step is first order ASAP. Not only like for momentum week, so if you can get some orders on the board before the push starts, again, that's going to give you a lot of confidence going into it, and even 1 or 2 can get you some momentum. But when the push starts, get that first order on the board as soon as possible, even if it's literally calling up your grandma and being like, hey, I know you wanted the spatula spreader. Like it's a one-tool order, but it's just going to get you on the board early, and it's going to make you feel really good, right? So again, don't wait to get things going. It feels a lot more stressful when you wait for like the last week or the last few days to try to call people and be like, oh my gosh, please, please, please place this order and things like that. So the quicker you can get on the board, the better. And I mentioned this earlier, but getting ahead in school in the next couple of weeks just to make sure that you give yourself as much time as you can over over the Olean push. And if it's not getting ahead, it's don't procrastinate, right? So like there might be things that are due the first week of the push, and you technically don't have to do them in the next week, but just don't procrastinate them, right? Because that just adds more onto your plate. So a few easy next steps there, and then we'll be good to go. So just to wrap up things here, I can't wait to see you all in Olean. No goose eggs, and 2020/$10 million DC Metro. It starts now with the Olean push, so let's go get after it. That's what I got.